I used to believe marriage was a safe haven, a place where love grew deeper with time. But after 10 years with Ethan, I learned that love wasn't enough. Passion faded. The fire we once had turned into routine kisses, predictable nights, and obligations disguised as intimacy. It wasn't that Ethan and I had fallen out of love. We still held hands in public, laughed at old jokes, and exchanged I love yous before bed. But beneath those small gestures, something was missing. Our bodies had become strangers to each other, and every touch felt rehearsed. One evening, as we sat on the patio with our friends Mark and Olivia, sipping wine and sharing stories, Olivia brought up something unexpected. "You ever heard of couple swapping?" she asked casually, her red lips curling into a smirk. Ethan and I exchanged glances. Mark chuckled, running a hand through his dark hair. "It's not as crazy as it sounds," he added. "A lot of married couples do it to spice things up." I let out a nervous laugh, but Olivia's words clung to me. Couple swapping? I had never considered something so reckless. "Not our thing," Ethan said, shaking his head. "Yeah," I agreed, though my voice lacked conviction. That night, after Mark and Olivia left, Ethan and I lay in bed in silence. My mind buzzed with thoughts I shouldn't have entertained. I turned to Ethan, my voice hesitant. "Do you think we should try it?" His brows furrowed. "Are you serious?" "I don't know," I shrugged. "We've been stuck in a rut. Maybe this is what we need." He let out a deep sigh. "You really want to see me with another woman?" The thought unsettled me. No. But wouldn't it be different? Exciting? Ethan didn't respond right away. I could tell he was considering it, and that terrified me more than if he had said no. Days passed, and the idea took root in our minds. The more we danced around it, the more it consumed us. Finally, we gave in. One night, over dinner, we met with Mark and Olivia again. The four of us sat in hushed anticipation as Olivia laid down the rules. No jealousy, no emotional attachments, and no going back once we crossed that line. "We only do this once," Ethan said firmly. I nodded. "Just one time." We all agreed, but deep down, I wasn't sure if any of us truly believed it. The night was set. A hotel suite. For consenting adults. No strings attached. As I stood in front of the mirror that evening, my hands trembled. I wasn't just about to share my body, I was about to gamble with my marriage. And I had no idea if we'd ever be the same again. I stood in the dimly lit hotel suite, my heart hammering against my ribcage. The air felt heavy, charged with something dangerous and thrilling. Ethan was across the room, pouring drinks, his jaw tight. Mark and Olivia sat on the couch, their eyes glinting with anticipation. No turning back now. The plan was simple: one night, no emotions, just an experience to shake up our marriages. But as I sipped my wine, my stomach twisted. Was I really going to go through with this? Olivia was the first to make a move. She stood, walked over to Ethan, and placed a hand on his chest. My breath hitched as I watched my husband, my Ethan, turn to her. She whispered something in his ear, and he nodded. My fingers tightened around my glass. Still okay? Mark's voice was low beside me. I turned to him. He was close, too close. His cologne mixed with the scent of expensive whiskey, and suddenly, my nerves weren't just from fear, they were from excitement. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. Then, everything blurred. Mark led me to the other side of the room, away from Ethan and Olivia. His hands were firm yet gentle, his touch unfamiliar but thrilling. My body tensed, every nerve screaming at me to stop, but I didn't. I let go. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I could hear Ethan and Olivia, soft murmurs and laughter. The thought should have devastated me, but instead, it sent a jolt of something unexpected through me. Was this jealousy? Or was it something else entirely? My heart pounded as Mark traced his fingers down my arm, his touch igniting a fire that had long been buried. I had never felt this way before, reckless, uninhibited. I wasn't just Ethan's wife tonight. I was something more, someone more. And I liked it. The night unfolded like a fever dream, urgent, raw, and completely unlike anything I had ever experienced. By the time we were done, I was breathless, my body weak from pleasure and guilt. Mark lay beside me, a satisfied smirk on his lips. I turned my head and saw Ethan on the other side of the suite, Olivia curled up next to him. He wasn't looking at me. Reality came crashing in. What had we done? Silence filled the room as we all dressed, avoiding each other's eyes. It was supposed to be simple. No feelings, no consequences. But I knew, even then, that something had changed. And there was no going back. I told myself it was over. That night at the hotel was supposed to be a one-time thing, a reckless experiment, a way to reignite the spark in our marriage. Ethan and I agreed we'd never speak of it again. We went back to our routine, pretending nothing had changed. But something had. Days passed, then weeks, yet the memory of that night refused to fade. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Mark's hands on my skin, his breath hot against my ear. It should have made me feel guilty. Instead, it made my body ache with need. The worst part? I could tell Ethan felt the same about Olivia. He thought I didn't notice the way he checked his phone more often, how he lingered outside when he knew she might be around. And me? I was just as guilty. It started with a text. Mark, thinking about you. I stared at the words on my screen, my pulse racing. I should have ignored it. I should have deleted it and never looked back. Instead, I typed, "Me too." That was all it took. A dangerous line had been crossed, and neither of us wanted to step back. Mark and I started sneaking around, meeting in secret, sometimes for just a few stolen moments, sometimes for hours at a time. Every touch, every whispered word made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. One afternoon, we met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. Mark's knee brushed against mine under the table, sending a thrill up my spine. "I can't stop thinking about you," he murmured, his fingers grazing my hand. I swallowed hard. This is wrong. Then why does it feel so right? I had no answer. Back home, Ethan and I continued our dance of deception. He kissed me goodnight, held me in his arms, but I could sense the distance between us. A part of me wondered if he was still seeing Olivia. Maybe he was. Maybe we were both too deep into this mess to ever find our way out. One evening, as I got ready for bed, Ethan sat on the edge of the mattress, watching me. His expression was unreadable. "You've been different lately," he said. I froze. "What do you mean?" He studied me, his eyes dark. "I don't know. Just different." My throat tightened. Did he suspect? Was he feeling the same guilt I was? Or was this just his own shame reflecting back at me? I forced a smile. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't. And deep down, I knew it never would be again. If you love this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling and dramatic tales. There's so much more to uncover, stay tuned. The affair wasn't just a reckless mistake anymore, it was an addiction. Mark and I found every excuse to see each other. A quick lunch. A meeting that didn't exist. A late-night drive when Ethan was working late. Every touch burned hotter than the last, every kiss filled with the danger of being caught. And I wasn't the only one hiding something. Ethan was acting strange, too. He spent more nights away, came home smelling of cologne that wasn't his. When I asked where he had been, his answers were vague. The man who once couldn't keep secrets from me now spoke in half-truths. We were both playing the same game. One afternoon, I was at Mark's house. Olivia was out of town, and we couldn't resist the chance to be alone. We were tangled together on the couch when his phone buzzed. Mark sighed, grabbing it from the table. He looked at the screen and froze. "What's wrong?" I asked, my breath still heavy from our time together. He hesitated before showing me the screen. My heart nearly stopped. It was a message from Olivia. "Olivia, you won't believe what I just found out." I sat up, my pulse pounding. "What does she mean?" Mark shook his head. "I don't know." Panic clawed at my throat. Did she know about us? Had Ethan told her something? I scrambled for my clothes. "I need to go." Mark grabbed my wrist. "Wait. We don't know what she knows." I yanked my arm free, my chest tightening. "I can't risk it. If Ethan finds out." But deep down, I already knew the truth. Ethan had already found someone else. And if Olivia knew about Mark and me, then Ethan probably did, too. I drove home with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind raced with 1,000 possibilities. Was Ethan waiting for me? Would he accuse me? Would I have to confess? When I stepped into the house, he was sitting in the living room, his eyes cold. My stomach dropped. "We need to talk," he said. My heart slammed against my ribs. "About what?" Ethan leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "You tell me, Emily." The way he said my name sent a chill through me. I opened my mouth, ready to deny everything. To lie. To tell him he was imagining things. But before I could speak, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Mark. Ethan's eyes flicked to my pocket, then back to me. Silence stretched between us like a loaded gun. If you're hooked, make sure to like and subscribe for more intense and dramatic stories. Ethan's stare burned into me, his expression unreadable. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, a cruel reminder of the mess I was in. I had two choices, lie or confess. I swallowed hard, my pulse pounding in my ears. Ethan, He held up a hand. Don't. Just answer one question. I braced myself. Okay. Is it Mark? My stomach dropped. The air left my lungs. There was no way to deny it now. Ethan sat back, exhaling a shaky breath. I knew it. The pain in his voice cut deeper than I expected. We had both strayed, both broken our vows, but hearing him say it, knowing he had been watching, suspecting, made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but Ethan wasn't done. I saw you, he said, his voice eerily calm. A few nights ago. Outside Mark's house. My hands clenched into fists. Then why didn't you say anything? His lips curled into a humorless smile. Why didn't you? Silence stretched between us, thick with everything we weren't saying. I wanted to be angry at him, to throw his own betrayal in his face, but what would that change? We were both guilty. Finally, Ethan sighed. This marriage was broken before Mark. Before Olivia. Tears burned behind my eyes. I hated that he was right. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw the man I married. The man I had loved before we let time, routine, and reckless choices destroy us. What now? I whispered. Ethan exhaled sharply. We decide if there's anything left worth saving. And that was the hardest part. Because deep down, I wasn't sure there was. Did this story keep you on edge? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling and dramatic tales. You won't want to miss the next story.